Hello and welcome back to another episode of Planet Coaster. We are actually getting started on the Mount Olympus kind of detailing here. So I went ahead and actually pre-laid out the track, and it's still kind of a work in progress. So I'm not really going to take you guys on a grand tour of that. Maybe at the end I'll touch on some things. But it's relatively basic. It's just I forget the name of the coaster, but it doesn't have any loops, no corkscrews or anything, just some sweeping turns and some dives. So nothing too special, at least for my first kind of real attempt at a coaster, because I feel like if I tried anything too complicated, I might get a little overwhelmed. Here, so for Mount Olympus, of course, we need a gate of some kind before it. And I figured the best thing to do would to build a kind of nice marble archway and use the metal grates as kind of a metal fence slash wall area. If you guys saw like maybe the original like Hercules animated series, that it'll look a little reminiscent of how they depicted the gates into Olympus, though it's still probably not really the best copy of even that. So what we're doing is using the base of the pillars to kind of get a nice smooth arch, and then we're backfilling it using the thin pieces of kind of marble walls just to make sure everything turns white. We're going to cap off the top of the main supporting pillars with one of the chimneys just for some extra bit of detail. It's all about, I guess, finding detail at this point out of things that you wouldn't normally use, though I think we have pretty much already established a lot of the Roman theme, and so I'm going to be using a lot of kind of the same techniques as, say, with the villas with the rest of this build. This build is going to cover at least most of the way up the initial hill here, and it being Mount Olympus, it's going to need to be pretty grand and rather detailed, in my opinion, to actually sell what I'm going for. And so that's why I decided to build villas and gardens and a whole bunch of cool stuff up here eventually. But starting out, we're going to do the gate, do some rock detailing on the initial pathway up, some little flowers and some additional little details, adding a little bit of gold to the gateway just because it makes it look a little bit more fancy, and because I didn't want to run the full kind of wall around because I felt like that would have been a little unnecessary. I decided to just kind of cover where it would be actually running with like shrubbery, trees, flowers, and some rocks to basically signal it's like, yes, it could be back there, but you just can't see it because of all the greenery. Here we're going to start on kind of the first villa. And my main tip for building on hillsides like this is that you definitely want to try and fit the terrain as best as possible. Try and inlay your structures. If you guys watched the Timber and Stone last season, where we actually carved into the mountainside, that's kind of my mindset when building stuff like this. You know, you want to have plateaus, structures on top of those plateaus, and then also receding into the hillside itself. So that's probably the best thing to do for kind of this cliffside building here. Now, there's going to be a lot of these marble kind of staircases because I think maybe using the normal pathing as a staircase would have been a little less grand than actually placing each step individually. Here you can see what I'm talking about. We're going to inlay the structure into the hillside, but then also raise it up to have another flat area. And basically what that means is, hey, the structure goes into the hillside, disappears. I don't have to worry about it anymore. And your brain automatically says, well, obviously there's rooms in there, otherwise the structure doesn't make sense. And so therefore you kind of get a free pass on doing things like this. So we're going to throw in some little details. I'm going to keep the roofing this plain kind of shingles, though the main structure on top of the main pathway that I don't build on camera, that's going to be using the same roofing as the temple and things like that. I was going to try some new window designs, but I just didn't like it. I just feel like drastically changing our theme here at the end would have been a little too much. But since it is Mount Olympus, I do want it to have plenty of marble and plenty of stone and a little less plaster than, say, the normal villas. And so that's why we go back in and really fill in walls and sections using all this marble texture and basically painting it in there as best we can. And you can see just really getting the shrubbery and trees really tucked into the buildings, really hugging it, making it look very almost like a Garden of Eden, or maybe Babylon, in a sense that it has so much greenery that it's kind of overflowing and consuming the buildings a little bit, but in a good way. You know, it's not like not kept, it's just very heavy growth going on there. Fitting a little bit of window there, decided to combine the two just so we can get shutters on that little square piece. And then throwing in some rocks, trying to match the terrain as best as possible. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode. I do apologize for that, but I have been sick the past couple days, so it's not going to be quite as long as normal. In fact, there is quite a big skip in terms of getting things done in this, but we can go over what all was done off camera near the end anyways. Trying to make this look as, I guess, pretty as possible. And then also we do clean up inside of the coaster entrance, trying to make kind of a rocky exposure that you would come out of and then start making your way up to Mount Olympus. I do end up abandoning this kind of bridge design. I wanted something to go across the tracks there, but I couldn't get anything, I guess, to work in my favor. And maybe you guys can suggest something that I could possibly do, whether, you know, make it out of a building or what have you. And also doing some light terrain painting is always nice, you know, mixing in a little bit of those rocks and a little bit of those sand textures just to make like the tree lines and shrubberies and stuff stand out just a little bit, just so you don't have this wall of constant flat green going around. Layering things is always kind of a big thing to try and shoot for eventually. And you can see also we're going to be laying down rocks, of course, to divide, say, this greenery hill slope that's kind of left over from the plateau and that garden area, just to try and seal that off and make it look all nice and kept. Also throwing in plenty of those kind of low-lying grass kind of effects. Here you can get to watch me actually do a poor attempt for a, I guess just a plaza slash gazebo like element. I'm terrible at naming these things, so I do apologize for that, but I'm sure you guys down below can just tell me what it is anyways. That's why I make these videos. I make stuff, don't know what they're called, and you guys tell me what they're called for me. It basically cuts out the time I take to research these things and proves that the internet obviously knows more than I do. So yeah, this is gonna be, it doesn't have a roof or anything. I've seen these type of structures before, at least in fantasy and high classical kind of era stuff, so I figured something like this would fit. I did try to use some new elements to try and fill in the gaps, but I didn't like that, so we ended up just putting the top part with more of these windows. And I do like to throw in those dark elements to kind of highlight how white and clean the rest of the structure is. And so this is just going to house a statue. It's going to be surrounded by, you know, a garden area and everything, and I figured it would just look nice to kind of counteract all the man-made structures on one side, and then the other side will have just a touch of a man-made structure followed by a bunch of, you know, natural elements. So I think that's what I was going for there. And then also, nice trick is to use the pathing tool up to the highest diameter, and you'll have a nice red kind of bottom to it, so that looks cool. Anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys kind of what all got done off camera, and then we will go from there and pretty much wrap up the episode. Okay everyone, so I hope you enjoyed the look of the speed build, at least a little bit that we did show. But I would like to go in and explain pretty much everything kind of in detail. We're not going to be riding the roller coaster today, so before people ask, I'm going to be saving that until the full thing is done. But it's looking nice already, so that's where I'm pretty much going to leave that there. Let's go ahead and start at the station, and you can see the entryway out. It has some rocks now and is basically sealed off. And then on the way up, you know, you have some gardens, some nice little fields, and then the whole path here, you know, using the paint tool to make a lot of the rocks, and then also using some of the 3D rocks just to kind of make some areas pop out and kind of give a little bit more depth. Here is kind of the first villa that you guys saw me build, and if you guys pretty much have seen the other episodes, you kind of already know how all this is made. It's pretty much the same kind of mindset that you go into. The only thing that's different is probably the fact that it's on a hillside and I have to include little stair elements to kind of work that in there. As, man, that coaster is loud. Let's just pause there, just so we can have some silence. But yeah, plenty of greenery, kind of really hugging these structures just to, you know, make them blend into the mountainside a little bit better and to make it look a whole lot more, say, godlike, you know? And they do have some balconies, some extra little flower pots kind of hanging out the sides, plenty of gardens out the right side, and then back there you can see the wonderful little statue plaza that we made on camera, and that turned out really nice. I just like how filled in this spot is. I think it really looks the part. So here is I guess this whole upper section you guys didn't get to see. It's I was gonna do something like the Pantheon, or yeah, it's the Pantheon, and it would have been a dome roof back here, but me making a dome, I tried for a couple hours and it just didn't work, and so I ended up kind of abandoning that concept and just went with a simple plus shaped roof. I don't think it really, you know, mattered a whole lot. I mean, no one's going to be up there to really tell that it's a dome structure until you're at the very top anyways, so not a major loss, and it does miss some of its side paneling, so that's not quite 100% done. I do like the kind of winding staircase down to this other plaza, and then eventually I do want to try and tackle getting a path and bridge built over towards this direction, so this would actually be accessible if you were up on the other bits of the structure. And yeah, so I think it looked really nice, and you know, more detail we get the better, and so that's a good start for a coaster, I think. Let's go ahead and look at the other bits of the coaster. It's not quite 100% done yet, but I do want your guys' opinion on it. Essentially, you get to the top here, and you do a nice slow rolling stop, and then you basically could get launched down the hillside. A bunch of sweeping little curves here, a little bit of a 360 there, and then it kind of wraps around. And eventually, of course, this is all going to be decorated. I think this section here, I want to have some more buildings. This section here will be a little bit more of a garden area. Back here, more garden, some more buildings. And yeah, it wraps around, goes in through the hillside here, and then it goes through these simple up-down kind of things. I don't know what these would be properly called because I don't know a thing about roller coasters. And then finally it will loop around and go underneath, and through there we will somehow connect it back to the station. So that's pretty much the first look at the roller coaster. It's going to be a multi-part series here, getting this thing all fleshed out, as just doing this amount of detail definitely took a little while, but once it's all done, our park is going to be filled in rather nicely. It's going to have this nice section completed, and then we'll just have the library to work on. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you all enjoyed the episode, feel free to subscribe if you're new. Go ahead and hit that like button so I know you guys enjoy this kind of stuff. Go ahead and leave a comment down below on what you guys think, what might need changed, worked on, and so forth. And until then, I'll see you guys next time in some more Planet Coaster.